Hello, I'm Vedi, a long-time League of Legends caster that's been a part of multiple international finals, made comedic sketches with little context, and have worked with amazing people to make some awesome music. But above all that, I just love talking about video games. So this is me talking about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now I will admit, I've very much missed the boat on this one. If you haven't already played the game yourself, you've very likely heard about it. From Game of the Year to 10 out of 10 ratings to even my mother hearing about the game, it does make me wonder why you're here. But before you can consider that, let's talk about the game. You find yourself in a disfigured city known as Lumina, a home to those lucky enough to survive the fracture, a cataclysmic event that left the world in ruin. You begin your journey by meandering your way through the prologue, being introduced to bits and pieces that help you learn more about the world and the dark reality that the survivors face. You come to learn that every year an event takes place known as the Gamechanger, but with little context as to what that actually is. All you know is that it has something to do with the numbers that stare at the city from the horizon, and of a being fabled as the Paintress. As you interact with the world, you get drip-fed information and start to piece together a puzzle. I think the prologue does a really great job of how it does this, largely by sharing with you the opinions from the people, their takes on life in Lumina, their situations, fears, ambitions, and their opinions on the expedition. This is where you come in, a member of the expedition, a group of people that set out on a voyage to better understand the world and what happened, to eliminate the threats posed to the people, and to ultimately reach the Paintress. Now some quick maths would tell you that the success rate probably isn't that high, but surely it'll be better now that you're here. In any case, following the most recent Gamechanger, you begin your voyage and start your expedition. And that's the high-level summary of the plot. I'm afraid to share more because I think the intro is a large part of what hooks people onto the game. It's introduced in a wonderful way if you're willing to interact with the environment. While I did engage a lot, even if I hadn't, I believe that the game would have done an amazing job with the cutscenes and visuals alone to get you captivated on a thrilling story. I couldn't put it down, because I just needed to know what happened next, and I think it's one of the most compelling plots I've experienced in a while. Now, a good plot needs good characters, and I think Clair Obscur presents us with a plethora to choose from. The expedition introduces you to a lot of people, and this game has a lot of content. The characters are the most important pieces, and they often come across as very genuine and relatable thanks to the voice actors putting on an impressive performance. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't flawless. There were definitely moments where I thought to myself that certain things were or weren't said for the sake of the plot, which did annoy me at times, but by and large the interactions came across as genuine. I could see how characters fit into archetypes and how their decisions, behaviors, and choice of words supported that. I really connected to a lot of the characters, and it really enhanced my experience. Expedition 33 is an open-world, turn-based RPG, often presented as a JRPG due to its similarities to many beloved turn-based RPGs of the past such as Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. Now, the open-world RPG element might appeal to many. Over the last decade, this genre has tailored towards action-based combat, providing cool combos, high mobility, and intense battles. So hearing about a turn-based combat with thoughts of slow, methodical, and stats-driven fights might sound boring. However, Expedition 33 introduces a unique mechanic to its turn-based combat, and that is QTEs, otherwise known as Quick Time Events. QTEs are when the player presses a button in response to a prompt on the screen, most commonly in cinematic moments where a player will lose control of the character while still having an impact on the outcome of the situation. The introduction of QTEs has created an extremely interesting element where previously, a combat style that felt determined by values was now open to skill expression. Expedition 33 allows for you to respond to your opponent's decisions in real time, meaning that it actually doesn't matter how much damage you do, all that matters is if you can survive long enough to do the damage needed to win. On a personal level, I absolutely loved this. As long as the bell hadn't rung, I could fight to the bitter end. It meant that I can decide for myself so many of my own challenges and experience the joy of learning a boss's patterns and surviving a fight long enough to defeat a boss that I wasn't supposed to defeat yet. I will say that the downsides of defeating these enemies is that you often find yourself overleveled for the main gameplay, but I found it frustrating in many turn-based games that difficult fights would be determined before I had a chance to try. Fortunately, that's not the case with Expedition 33. It's a unique spin on a classic model that really made the combat one of the most enjoyable and satisfying experiences for me, and as someone that likes the challenge, it was very rewarding and a lot of fun. We gotta— Yes! Let's go! Let's go! Now, turn-based combat often involves a multitude of characters that you're introduced to throughout the story, and Expedition 33 is no exception. With your party consisting of various members of the expedition, the characters each come with their unique style of combat, allowing you to customize a team that caters to the style you want to play. And this variety is deep. I'm not kidding, there is a ridiculous amount of customization. Characters have access to a variety of utility, damage, or support that they can spec into, meaning you can customize your characters in any direction that you want. I think this, as a baseline, and the way it's introduced is easy to understand, and offers a lot of flexibility in people's approach to the game. While for many this may seem really cool, it does start to get complicated with the introduction of weapons, Pictos, and Lumina. Weapons come with perks as they level up, potentially supporting your existing playstyle or opening options for new ones. Weapons also come with levels and stat scalings, which in the early portions of the game are vague in how impactful the scalings really are. Then there are Pictos, which provide your character with stats and buffs. Win enough battles with these Pictos, and the buffs they provide can be a permanent part of your character through Lumina, which exists alongside Pictos, allowing for maximizing the potential of your characters. All of this might seem overwhelming, and I would say that it is. The game does explain everything, and there are tools in the game to re-explain things if you didn't initially understand them. But in my experience, I was so enthralled in the story that I put understanding these systems to the side to simply enjoy the game. That wasn't until I hit a bit of a war with an enemy that I was struggling with and decided it was about time. At this point, I had so many Pictos, I wasn't really sure where to start. Now, I don't mean to scare you off. The system itself is fairly straightforward. It just requires a bit of sitting down and reading to fully understand what you have access to. The beauty of the system is it opens up your characters to so many possibilities and an insane number of playstyles. I found myself swapping between weapons and Pictos depending on the fights that I encountered to better set myself up for success. However, I know people that hate sitting on menus and reading a bunch of text. They want to play the game, not study it. The more time they spend thinking about how to use the system rather than just playing the game is not an uncommon blocker. Personally, I enjoyed spending the time going through all of my options and experimenting with builds, but I can't deny that I did spend a lot of time just sitting in menus and reading text. Outside of the systems is the world itself, which is what you will spend most of your time engaging with. It is stunning. The game is full of these incredible scenes and designs that force you to stop and soak it in. It is a truly beautiful game from start to finish. Now, initially, I believed the game to be on a linear track. You'll find yourself in locations that guide you in a specific direction while offering a few hidden secrets or pieces of loot. As you traverse through the zones, there isn't really much to explore outside of the path presented to you. That is until you clear the first area and are exposed to the rest of the mainland. While the mainland does still deny you access to some areas until certain requirements are met, it opens up much quicker than you'd expect, providing you with new battles, new loot to discover, lore and secrets to find, and a plethora of other challenges depending on your ambition. When exposed to the open world and more ways are given for you to traverse it, there are plenty of options provided regardless of the level you find yourself at. And as the game continues, it's made easier to backtrack to these locations and try to find things that you found too challenging before. This may seem strange, but I just adore well-made side content that isn't the main story. I like to have as many advantages as I can during the main plot rather than once the plot has completed. In a game like this, where levels can quickly get out of control, it's not necessarily the best plan, but I think the game does a good job of providing you with a balance of content that you can engage with and gain value from immediately, along with content that you should come back and do later with fun and silly content that you can do at any time for some neat cosmetics. I often found myself enamored with the different content that existed in the world and how it helped you better understand the world with the challenges that come along with it. The world is well thought out and does a good job of tying the plot, the characters, and the pieces all together, both answering questions and creating new ones, offering pieces and perspectives about past expeditions and a constant introduction into new designs, experiences, and just fun stuff to do. So far you've heard me praise the game in so many aspects, it would be a disservice if I didn't also highlight some of the negative experiences as well. The worst experience I had was a pretty serious bug, where I had lost a few hours of gameplay because the game just didn't save. I played on the PS5, but I read online that this issue had been experienced by a few other users on other platforms. Where there seemed to be some solutions for Steam users, there wasn't one for me, and it was extremely disheartening how much I had lost and had to replay. Fortunately, this issue seems to be extremely rare and it hasn't happened to me since. Aside from that, I do think some things just aren't explained that well. For example, some Lumina can sometimes come across ambiguous, where what they actually do is not how they read, and to properly understand I had to use external sources or ask some friends. While I don't consider this a major drawback, it was annoying, and this wasn't exclusive to Lumina. It may have been my fault, but I spent many hours unaware of why Pictos and weapons were randomly leveling up and what seemed to me by random amounts. There seemed to be no obvious trend aside from killing certain enemies leveled certain pieces of equipment. It turns out that killing certain enemies just drops higher level weapons of ones you already have. This means if you missed it, you can still get it later, but if you already had it, it comes across as your equipment randomly leveling for no clear reason. My main point is that some of these things could have just been explained a little better. Now, I don't consider this a spoiler, but if it is, I apologize. You do run into a damage cap of 9,999. While this cap is eventually lifted, I found it surprisingly easy to reach. I went for a glass cannon type build early on, investing everything into as much damage as possible, which quickly became redundant because I couldn't actually do more damage. Now, I will say that even though I'm mentioning this, I do think it was necessary, and the reason is because of players like me. It was quite simple to become overleveled. There are some higher level enemies early on with simple patterns, and as I mentioned, as long as you don't die, it eventually will. If there wasn't a damage cap, then if you do find yourself overleveled, then all challenge basically disappears because your raw stats will just trivialize the story bosses. Therefore, I would define it as a double-edged sword, and I would encourage people to not fight every single challenging encounter like I did, because Expedition 33 does provide a lot of engaging late game encounters beyond the story. Aside from that, my experience has only been a positive one. The game enthralls you with its storytelling, interesting characters, fun combat, compelling world, and just overall fun experiences. It scratches so many itches that I, as a huge enjoyer of exploration and challenge, look for in a game. But even I can tell it provides a great casual experience for all walks of gamers. And for the price, it would be a disservice not to recommend this game. Now, while I don't love rating systems, if I didn't have one, you wouldn't be able to mock me, so we'll give this 4.5 out of 5 pineapples. Guys, I really like pineapples, so this'll have to do. I loved the game, but I'd love to know your thoughts and what your experiences were. Tell me who your favorite character was, or maybe you had an amazing moment that you can share for someone browsing to get them excited. Just try to be careful about them spoilers. I pray that the goddess of RNG blesses you all with good loot, good shit, and a good day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.